The roar of the engines was deafening. But somehow, the silence that came later felt even louder. For years, fans believed Kyle Busch was untouchable. A fearless competitor. A villain to some. A hero to others. A man who seemed born for chaos, speed, and controversy. But behind the cameras, behind the trophies, behind the aggressive confidence that made him one of NASCAR's most polarizing figures, something darker may have already been unfolding. Because in the final chapter of his life, whispers began spreading through the racing world. People noticed changes. Subtle at first. A strange exhaustion in his eyes. Moments where the fire didn't burn quite as brightly. Interviews that suddenly felt heavier. Quieter. Almost haunted. Fans ignored the signs. After all, this was Kyle Busch. The man who survived crashes. Pressure. Hatred. The unbearable weight of expectation. How could someone like him possibly break? But sometimes, the strongest competitors hide the deepest pain. And by the time the world realized something was wrong, it was already too late. What truly happened during Kyle Busch's tragic final days? And why do some believe the warning signs were there long before the world noticed? To understand the heartbreaking truth, we have to go back to where it all began. Back before the championships. Before the fame. Before the rivalries. Back to a young boy completely obsessed with speed. A boy who would grow into one of NASCAR's most unforgettable and ultimately tragic legends. Long before millions of fans screamed his name from packed grandstands. Before headlines called him aggressive, arrogant, unstoppable. Kyle Busch was simply a kid who couldn't stay away from racing. Born in Las Vegas, Nevada, he grew up in a household where engines were more than machines. They were life itself. His father introduced him to racing at an incredibly young age, and almost immediately, something clicked inside him. While other children played games, Kyle studied speed. While others dreamed of becoming athletes or movie stars, he dreamed about racetracks. The smell of gasoline. The vibration of engines. The feeling of pushing a machine beyond its limits. That world consumed him. Friends and family quickly realized this wasn't just a hobby. It was an obsession. And obsessions, especially the kind formed in childhood, often come with consequences no one fully understands until years later. By the age most kids were still figuring out who they were, Kyle Busch already knew exactly who he wanted to become. A racer. Not just good. Not just successful. The best. No matter the cost. And that mentality would eventually make him both legendary and deeply feared. As he climbed through the racing ranks, one thing became impossible to ignore. Kyle Busch wasn't like everyone else. He raced with fury, with emotion, with the kind of aggression that made every lap feel dangerous. Fans either loved him or absolutely hated him. There was almost no middle ground. Some saw confidence. Others saw arrogance. Some admired his relentless drive to win. Others believed he crossed lines no driver should cross. But regardless of how people felt about him, nobody could deny his talent. Because week after week, race after race, Kyle kept winning. And winning. And winning. Soon, NASCAR had a new superstar. A driver capable of breathtaking brilliance, but also explosive emotion. Television cameras constantly caught moments of anger. Arguments with teammates. Tense interviews. Radio outbursts during races. He became one of the sport's most controversial figures. And strangely, that only made him more famous. Crowds booed him loudly during introductions. But they watched every second he was on the track. Because deep down, even his critics understood something terrifyingly simple. Kyle Busch was real. Raw. Unfiltered. Emotionally explosive. He wasn't trying to play the perfect sports hero. And maybe that authenticity came from the pressure slowly building inside him year after year. Because greatness in NASCAR demands more than talent. It demands sacrifice. Relentless sacrifice. The public saw trophies. They saw championships. Historic victories. But they rarely saw what those achievements were doing to him physically and mentally. The travel never stopped. The pressure never stopped. Every mistake became national conversation. Every failure became humiliation. Every race carried expectations heavy enough to crush most people. And Kyle Busch carried those expectations for decades. People forget what constant competition does to the human mind. The paranoia, the stress, the emotional exhaustion. Imagine waking up every day knowing millions expect you to dominate. Imagine hearing boos from crowds who want to see you fail. Imagine spending years inside machines moving at terrifying speeds where one wrong moment could end everything. That kind of pressure changes people. Sometimes slowly, sometimes permanently. And while Kyle Busch continued building one of the most successful careers in NASCAR history, something else was quietly building too. Fatigue. Not just physical fatigue. A deeper exhaustion. The kind that settles into someone's soul. Then came the championships. The moments that cemented his legacy forever. Each victory pushed him higher into NASCAR immortality. Fans celebrated. Analysts praised him. The media called him one of the greatest drivers of his generation. And for a while, it truly looked like Kyle Busch had conquered everything. But fame creates dangerous illusions. Because people only see what happens under stadium lights. They don't see the loneliness afterward. The recovery. The injuries. The sleepless nights replaying crashes and failures over and over in your mind. Over time, even those closest to him reportedly noticed changes. Moments where the pressure seemed heavier than before. Moments where frustration lingered longer. Moments where exhaustion became impossible to hide. Yet Kyle kept racing. Because racers don't stop. Not mentally. Not emotionally. Sometimes not even physically. Especially someone like Kyle Busch. Competition had become more than his career. It had become his identity. And when your entire identity is built around winning, what happens when the body and mind begin struggling to keep up? That question slowly became harder to ignore. As the years passed, NASCAR itself began changing. Younger drivers emerged. New rivalries formed. The sport evolved. But Kyle Busch remained one of its defining faces. Still intense. Still emotional. Still chasing greatness with almost frightening determination. Yet beneath the surface, there were signs. Subtle signs. Fans noticed moments where he looked drained after races. Interviews where his energy felt different. Expressions that carried something difficult to explain. Almost like someone carrying invisible weight. People dismissed it as stress. Or age. Or simply the normal toll of a brutal sport. But hindsight changes everything. Because later, after the tragedy, those moments would suddenly feel haunting. Like clues hidden in plain sight. And perhaps the most heartbreaking part is that nobody realized how serious things may have become behind closed doors. Not the fans. Not the media. Maybe not even Kyle himself. Then came the whispers. Quiet conversations within the racing world. Rumors that something wasn't right. Some described unusual fatigue. Others mentioned emotional withdrawal. A few began wondering whether years of pressure and punishment had finally caught up with him. But publicly, Kyle Busch kept showing up. Still racing. Still fighting. Still refusing to let the world see weakness. Because legends aren't supposed to fall apart. Especially not in public. And maybe that's what made everything so devastating later on. The realization that while millions watched him perform, a private battle may have already been consuming him from the inside. One exhausting day at a time. Then suddenly, the atmosphere around him started changing. Interviews became shorter. Appearances felt different. And for the first time in years, some fans began asking a terrifying question. Was Kyle Busch okay? At first, nobody imagined how dark the answers might become. But behind the roaring engines, behind the cameras and headlines, something terrible may already have been unfolding. And soon, the entire racing world would be forced to confront a tragedy nobody saw coming. At first, the rumors didn't seem believable. After all, this was Kyle Busch, a man who had spent his entire life surviving pressure most people could never endure. He raced through pain, through exhaustion, through injuries that would sideline ordinary athletes. Kyle Busch was supposed to be indestructible. That's what fans believed. That's what NASCAR believed. But somewhere behind the scenes, something had changed, and the people closest to him were beginning to notice it. It started subtly, the kind of changes easy to dismiss in the middle of a busy racing season. A tired expression during interviews, long pauses before answering questions, moments where he seemed mentally distant, even while standing in front of cameras. Some teammates reportedly noticed he wasn't quite himself, less energetic, less explosive, quieter. And for someone whose personality had always filled every room with intensity, that silence felt unsettling. Then came the physical signs. Reports began circulating that Kyle had been dealing with unusual exhaustion. Not normal racing fatigue. Something deeper, persistent, draining. The kind of exhaustion that sleep couldn't fix. At first, fans barely paid attention. Athletes get tired. Drivers push their bodies constantly. But over time, the whispers grew louder. During races, viewers began noticing moments that felt strangely off. Small mistakes, visible frustration, a look in his eyes that cameras occasionally captured for only a second. But that second was enough. Enough for longtime fans to feel something was wrong. Social media slowly filled with concern. What's happening to Kyle? He doesn't look healthy lately. Something feels different. Though, he kept racing. That was the terrifying part. Even as questions grew around him, Kyle Busch continued showing up every weekend like a man refusing to surrender to whatever was happening inside him. Because for drivers like him, stopping feels impossible. When competition becomes your entire identity, walking away can feel worse than suffering. And maybe that's why his final months now feel so heartbreaking in hindsight. Because many believe the warning signs were already there. Yet nobody truly understood how serious things might have become. Behind closed doors, concern reportedly intensified. Family members allegedly urged him to slow down. Friends worried privately. Some within NASCAR began wondering whether years of relentless pressure had finally taken a devastating toll. But publicly, Kyle tried to maintain the image fans knew. The fighter, the competitor, the fearless personality who never backed down. Even when cameras captured moments of visible exhaustion, he kept smiling, kept answering questions, kept climbing back into the car. And perhaps that's what makes this story so emotionally devastating. The possibility that while the world still saw a racing legend, he may have already been quietly falling apart. Then came the appearances that fans would later revisit with heartbreak. Interviews that suddenly felt eerie after the tragedy. Moments where his voice sounded weaker, where his expressions carried a heaviness difficult to explain. At the time, nobody knew those clips would later spread across the internet alongside emotional captions and tribute videos. Nobody realized they were potentially witnessing the final chapter of a legend. And the darker the rumors became, the more confusion spread across NASCAR. Some reports hinted at health complications. Others suggested emotional burnout. A few online discussions spiraled into fear and speculation. But very little was confirmed publicly. That uncertainty only intensified the anxiety surrounding him. Because human beings fear what they cannot fully understand. And as Kyle Busch's condition reportedly worsened, the silence around it became terrifying. Then came the final public appearances. And according to many fans, something about them felt haunting. The energy was different. The confidence that once defined him seemed buried beneath visible exhaustion. Even his body language appeared heavier, slower, like someone carrying invisible pain. Yet he still showed up, still signed autographs, still smiled for cameras, still tried to be Kyle Busch. That determination shattered fans emotionally later on, because many began asking the same painful question. How much suffering was he hiding from the world? As days passed, fear quietly spread through the racing community. Teammates reportedly exchanged worried conversations. Journalists began noticing unusual tension around updates involving him. Fans refreshed social media, constantly searching for news. And then, everything changed. Suddenly, violently, without warning, the news exploded across the internet like a shockwave. Phones buzzed. Television broadcasts interrupted programming. Social media feeds filled with confusion and panic. People couldn't believe what they were reading. For a moment, the entire NASCAR world seemed frozen. Fans desperately searched for confirmation. Some refused to believe it. Others hoped the reports were fake. But the emotional reactions came fast, and they came from everywhere. Teammates reportedly broke down in disbelief. Commentators struggled to speak during broadcasts. Fans flooded online platforms with heartbreak, memories, and grief. Videos of Kyle Busch's greatest moments suddenly reappeared across the internet, accompanied by emotional tributes. The boos he once received from crowds disappeared instantly. In tragedy, even rivals mourned him. Because beneath the controversy and aggression, everyone understood what Kyle Busch truly represented. Passion, intensity, relentless determination. He gave NASCAR everything he had. And now, the sport suddenly faced the horrifying reality of losing one of its most unforgettable figures. The atmosphere became emotionally overwhelming. Outside racetracks, fans reportedly gathered in silence. Candles appeared. Messages poured in from around the sports world. Even people who spent years criticizing him admitted they never imagined things would end this way. That's the strange thing about tragedy. It changes perspective instantly. The arguments stop. The rivalries fade. And all that remains is the painful realization that a human life has suddenly disappeared. For NASCAR fans, it felt unreal. Because Kyle Busch had always seemed larger than life. Too fierce to collapse. Too stubborn to break. Too strong to vanish. But now the racing world was drowning in grief. And one devastating question echoed everywhere. What really happened to Kyle Busch? As reports continued spreading, the emotional shock only deepened. People began revisiting old footage, searching for clues. Searching for signs they missed. Searching for moments where the tragedy may have already been quietly unfolding in front of everyone. And the more fans looked back, the more heartbreaking everything became. Because suddenly, the exhaustion looked more serious. The quiet moments felt darker. The interviews carried hidden sadness nobody recognized at the time. It was as if the world had witnessed a slow collapse without realizing it. And now, it was too late to stop it. Inside NASCAR, the emotional damage felt enormous. Drivers reportedly struggled to focus. Commentators sounded shaken. Entire broadcasts carried a heavy atmosphere of grief. Because this wasn't just about losing a competitor. This was about losing a symbol of modern NASCAR itself. Kyle Busch had spent years becoming one of the sport's defining personalities. Love him or hate him, you watched him. And now that presence was suddenly gone. The silence left behind felt unbearable. But the most disturbing part was that many believed the full truth still hadn't been revealed. Questions remained unanswered. Rumors intensified. Speculation spread across the internet. What exactly caused the tragedy? How long had he been suffering? Could anything have been done differently? And perhaps the most painful question of all, did Kyle Busch know how serious things had become before the end? Those questions haunted fans endlessly. Because sometimes, the most heartbreaking tragedies are the ones that feel preventable in hindsight. And as the world waited for answers, a deeper emotional story was about to emerge. One that would reveal not only the devastating reality surrounding his final moments, but also the hidden emotional cost of a life spent chasing greatness at impossible speeds. And when the truth finally began coming out, it shattered people completely. In the days after the tragedy, the truth slowly began to surface. And somehow, it hurt even more than people imagined. Because behind the fame, behind the victories, behind the image of the fearless NASCAR legend, Kyle Busch had reportedly been fighting battles few truly understood. Physical exhaustion, mental pressure, emotional strain built over decades of relentless competition. The same fire that made him great may have also been destroying him quietly from within. Those closest to him were devastated. Family members reportedly struggled to speak publicly. Friends described unbearable shock. Teammates looked emotionally broken during interviews. Many said the hardest part was realizing how much pain he may have hidden while still trying to perform for the world. Because that's what legends often do. They suffer silently. They smile publicly. And they keep going long after their bodies and minds are begging them to stop. As more details emerged surrounding his final days, fans began understanding the deeper tragedy. This wasn't just about racing. It was about pressure, about identity, about the terrifying cost of spending an entire lifetime chasing perfection. 4 years, Kyle Busch lived inside one of the most brutal competitive environments imaginable. Every mistake judged, every weakness criticized, every failure replayed endlessly in public. And eventually, even the strongest people can break beneath that weight. Across NASCAR, the grief felt deeply personal. Tributes appeared everywhere. Old rivals honored him. Fans packed racetracks wearing his merchandise with tears in their eyes. Videos of his greatest victories suddenly felt painful to watch. Because now every celebration carried sadness attached to it. Every smile felt temporary. Every moment reminded people how quickly life can change. And maybe that's why his story hit so hard emotionally. Because beneath the controversy, Kyle Busch was human. A man who dedicated his entire existence to the sport he loved. A man who gave fans unforgettable memories. A man who pushed himself beyond limits again and again until there was almost nothing left to give. That realization haunted people, especially those who once viewed him only as a villain. Because in the end, even legends are fragile. The racing world moved forward. New races happened. New headlines appeared. But something felt missing. The noise of NASCAR no longer sounded the same. For many fans, it never would again. Because Kyle Busch wasn't just another driver. He was emotion, chaos, passion, intensity. He made people feel something every single time he stepped onto a track. And now, only memories remained. Perhaps the saddest truth of all is how easily warning signs can hide behind success. The trophies distracted people. The fame distracted people. The confidence distracted people. But underneath it all, a human being may have been quietly struggling while the world kept cheering. And by the time people truly saw the pain, the story was already ending. Tonight, somewhere, old NASCAR highlights are still playing. Crowds are still roaring in archived footage. Kyle Busch is still speeding across the track at impossible speeds. Looking fearless. Looking unstoppable. Looking alive. But real life doesn't pause like highlight reels do. And sometimes, the brightest competitors burn themselves out long before anyone notices the smoke. That is the tragedy people may never forget. Not just how Kyle Busch died, but how hard he fought to keep going while something terrible was quietly unfolding behind the scenes. And maybe the most haunting part of all is wondering how many other legends are smiling for the cameras right now, while silently falling apart inside.